Hi, this is Cheryl Petersen at Healing Science Today. I study and write about God, faith, science, and finding meaning and purpose in life. This video responds to the question, is Christian Science a cult? Here's my research and thoughts. Many video producers treat Christian Science as a cult. They use not so good information to back up their views and repeat, Christian Science is like grape nuts. I mean, it's kind of funny, but like all puns, they're only funny once. However, most of the videos provide food for thought, even if it's a bit hard to chew at first. Generally, the videos are produced by pastors of other religions, and without a doubt, they tag Christian Science as a cult. But, as with anything, there's more to the story. A video made by Better Mental Health includes 3 speakers in a panel discussion who, with a little more give and take, talk about, quote, growing up in Christian Science, a lesser-known religion that some consider a cult, unquote. Then there is an atheist, Jared, at Heliocentric, who has made a couple of pretty darn good videos about Christian Science, showing cultish tendencies. My efforts here are not to explain why Christian Science is a cult or not. I want to go a step further to equip ourselves with the means to be confident when it comes to Christian Science and cultish tendencies. I will address 3 questions. What is a cult? What is Christian Science? Can Christian Science not be treated as a cult? What is a cult? Within the workings of a cult, we find unquestioning loyalty to authorities, dogma, or rituals. Cults show little or no accountability to the rules they profess to be following. Cult members think and act as though they know what is clearly right and pure. They believe they have something special and great. To survive, cults enforce the us versus them mentality and build up enemies, whether they know it or not. Any of this sound familiar? We do not deal with cultish behavior only in unorthodox religions, but also in mainstream religions, politics, social media, our workplaces, at schools, in marriages. Do you know anyone who belongs to this cult? We already have proof that the internet damages social skills and paralyzes minds. Does the internet control us? Can we live without it? Does it make us feel superior or inferior? Do we need to escape the internet? Those questions are rhetorical. We need to do more than identify something as a cult. The point of this video is dealing with the consequences of cultish thinking and arming ourselves with the justice, humility, and mercy that keeps us from becoming imprisoned in any cultish reasoning or situation. So, what is Christian Science? In the 19th century, Mary Baker Eddy defined Christian Science, quote, as the law of God, the law of good, interpreting and demonstrating the divine principle and rule of universal harmony, unquote. Now, if those words sounded like mumbo-jumbo, then my answer served a good example of how words do not and cannot contain meaning. Words cannot say anything. Words do not talk to us. They are symbols. We can only interpret words. And we either interpret or explain words through our own memories, expectations, and desires, or through our shared humanity and ever-operative divine inspiration, or in my case, what I call the science of Christ, truth, in a word, Christian Science. We cannot get meaning from words. We give meaning to words. That definition I read to you about Christian Science being the law of good, well, that only has meaning to me after decades of study and experience, good experiences. I have felt, and now I believe, in a force of good, of love, in operation, restoring, with the consequence of making fear and hate forceless. Now, I could also explain the meaning of Christian Science in an example embracing discoveries, experiences, language, history, comparing, contrasting. Here's an example. Isaac Newton discovered an unseen force and called it gravity. Mary Baker Eddy discovered an unseen force and called it God. Newton and Eddy taught other people what they were learning. Gravity and God have understandable and practical laws that we can apply to demonstrate improved physical and mental conditions. Newton wrote about physics in Principia. Eddy wrote about Christian Science in Science and Health. Later, the knowledge was organized. Newton's teachings fall under the branch of science called physics. Eddy's teachings fall under the branch of science called metaphysics. Physicists organized, experimented, and expanded the meaningfulness and purpose of gravity. Christian Scientists organized, experimented, and expanded the meaningfulness and purpose of God. Although they lived in different times, both Newton and Eddy became famous when they were alive. Eddy died in 1910. After they died, no one insisted that only Newton's words could be read and studied. And today, we travel the cosmos. But within the organized religion of Christian Science, members restricted themselves to reading only Eddy's words, along with the King James Version of the Bible. In my research, I found extensive documentation from late 19th century through early 20th century, testifying to Christian Science to mean increased spirituality and faith in God as infinite love. It meant quieting human minds and responding to the power of divine mind in all areas of life. Christian Science means relying on infinite truth when praying or working with theology, medicine, and science. The primary goal was to demonstrate divine principle, God. It wasn't to heal bodies or make money, although records show that that happened significantly. Now, fast forward 100 years. Records show that by the end of the 20th century, the primary goal seemed to be healing physical things and making money. While some good is still recorded, it was outweighed by the bad. I was born in 1961 and watched the church decline. In the 1980s and 90s, Christian Science came under serious public scrutiny for its radical reliance on prayer. If the topic of Christian Science came up, someone would immediately say, "Oh, you don't go to doctors." But all I could do was blurt, "Oh, that's not Christian Science. We can go to doctors." I learned soon enough that simple denials fail to give correct or new meaning. So I did some research. I grabbed a few books off the shelf to show you what I read 20 years ago. These books talk about Christian Science, faith, prayer, doctoring, and cultish tendencies. Don't let the title of this book scare you. Once I faced my fear of it and read it, sure, it was accusatory, but it also contains some accuracy and it deserves respect. Nurturing the idea of accuracy, I admitted words do change meanings. I admitted that the collective consensus about the meaning of Christian Science had changed drastically. Critics and admirers alike had reinterpreted Christian Science to mean not going to the doctor, radical reliance on prayer instead of relying on truth, and believing you must only read Mary Baker Eddy's words to be considered loyal to Christian Science. Now, not everybody did that, but the majority is what I needed to know. While some good results were still recorded under this new meaning of Christian Science, they did not outweigh the negative results. Confusion ruled the roost. I kept up my research as part of humanity rather than as only part of a church. I read books by doctors and philosophers who reinforced the power of faith, prayer, and the benefits of believing in God and of being part of religious communities. These authors humbly admitted that people do suffer and die under medical care. Medicine isn't necessarily scientific, and mistakes are made. They showed me, though, how to reduce cultish tendencies. Be honest. Look at the bigger picture. Move with the latest knowledge, not with what we think we know is true and pure. Detect and remove arrogance and ignorance with increased understanding and by working together. Let's do a test to see if we can detect cultish ideology. I will read a paragraph from the March 2025 Christian Science Journal, an interview with the Board of Education, where speakers talk about why certain types of teaching would not be either genuine or correct. You ready? Quote, "If we really look at what she, Mary Baker Eddy, says in the manual, the church manual, it's so clear she defended class teaching because she knew it had to stay pure. That's why she insisted that there be authorized teachers that were taught in a normal class according to the provisions in the manual. That was the way that you would be sure that what you were getting was pure Christian Science." Unquote. I am interested in your interpretation of that paragraph if you are willing to leave a comment. As for me, I see red flags of cultish behavior. To authorize someone as a teacher of Christian Science does not guarantee good teaching. Don't get me wrong. I was taught in primary class by an authorized Christian Science teacher in the 1980s, and the good results did outweigh the bad for me. But I do question the tactic of persistently speaking for Mary Baker Eddy. She says, she knew, she defended, Mrs. Eddy insisted. To me, Eddy's words are being used to validate what the speaking person believes. Humans do it all the time. I do it too, but in small measures. Eddy's words here are also being used to drum up impure, incorrect, and ungenuine forces. That's a lot to swallow without choking. Yes, we need to be careful when teaching and learning anything. But it does not serve us well to misinterpret words or turn them into dogma. Probably this is why Mary Baker Eddy constantly revised words in her Science and Health and the church manual, hundreds of times until she was dead. And the revision work stopped until the turn of the 21st century. Now, the last question. Can Christian Science not be treated as a cult? Can God reform, restore, and renew the original goodness in all of creation? Yes. Can the meaning of Christian Science change again for the better? Yes. Can I learn about Christian Science and feel safe? Yes. Lean on God. Can I stop rigidly preserving words and rituals professed to be set down by Eddie as permanent and pure, and still improve my understanding and practice of Christian Science? Yes. Can I blow the whistle on the irreverence of doggedly claiming to know what Mary Baker Eddy says, thinks, believes, or wants us to do today? Yes. Can I forgive myself for insisting that meaning must be extracted from the Bible or Eddy's words rather than give meaning to goodness by being good? Yes. Can I forgive the people who portray the woman, Mary Baker Eddy, as being autocratic, unreasonable, or oppressive? Yes. Can I forgive a person or organization that persistently led me to words for help rather than to God and the science of Christ? Yes. We all have something to offer when giving meaning and purpose to life. I recently published Parallel Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, a side-by-side reading of Eddy's Science and Health, along with the 7th edition of 21st Century Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, a modern version of Mary Baker Eddy's Science and Health by me, Cheryl Petersen. Yeah, 750 pages, but it is available on digital also. Or you can just get just the 7th edition, because Mary Baker Eddy's book's out there. I have not changed a word in it. You can get that anywhere. Now, this is the 6th edition and this is the 5th. Both of those are fine too. I like the 7th. If you want a shorter version, From Science and Religion to God, this is a brief narrative of Mary Baker Eddy's Science and Health. It's only 172 pages. This is a new book, Science and Spirituality, celebrating the 150th anniversary of the first edition of Mary Baker Eddy's Science and Health. I like this book. It reflects the fact that Christian Science came before a religious organization, and Science and Health was written for readers from all types of backgrounds. So, is Christian Science a cult? That depends on who you ask. But either way, I hope I see a lot of people. I hope and I will keep looking for all of the people who are working to reduce cultish tendencies and increasing the meaning and purpose of good, God.